When I fell into the productivity rabbit hole a couple of years ago, every single time management guru was telling me to plan my day like it should be simple. But yet I still found myself sitting down every morning having no idea where to start, creating schedules that I didn't even stick to, and spending more time planning than actually doing the work. I have learned a few things the past couple of years, so today I want to give you 5 simple but effective tips I use to manage my time and schedule my busy life. A big thank you to Shortform for sponsoring this video, but more on them later. Tip number 1 is to plan your week before you plan your day. Most of us sit down each morning and work out what we want to spend our time on that day. And there's nothing wrong with this, but it misses the bigger picture. Someone might have told you about the Eisenhower matrix before, and I don't actually use this in my planning because I feel like it makes things too complicated, but it's a really great way to think about your tasks. The Eisenhower matrix is a way to prioritize your work, and it does this by splitting tasks into 4 different categories based on their urgency and importance. The idea was first introduced by the 34th President of the United States, Dwight Eisenhower, in 1954. Stephen Covey turned this into the productivity tool that we all use today in one of my favorite books, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Since then, it has been used by some of the world's most successful and productive people. Quadrant 1 is our firefighting and crisis work. These are the things that are urgent and important, and we really do have to get them done, but they will take up all of our time if they're not controlled. Quadrant 2 is our growth quadrant. These are important but not urgent. So these are things that help us to become better people, to achieve our long-term goals, but they're not really necessary right now. Quadrant 3 is the illusion of importance, and these are urgent tasks that seem important, but most of the time they aren't actually. We want to try and delegate these tasks or just fit them in the gaps. Quadrant 4 is our time wasting and procrastination. These are things that we all know we shouldn't be spending our time on, but we still do. So we want to try and eliminate or reduce these as much as possible. Now, the average person has between 10 and 100 different projects at any one time. That is a lot of tasks to fit in. So when we just plan our days without thinking about our weeks, we plan based on overwhelm. We get so caught up in our in-the-moment priorities, our Q1 and Q3 tasks, things like finishing a report, replying to emails, and putting out fires. The Q4 tasks then consume our spare time. The mindless scrolling, the procrastination, doing unnecessary work. In the end, we're just left with no time for our Q2 tasks, the tasks that don't seem important now but are really essential to create a better life. This is why only 6% of people achieve their goals each year. It's not that we don't want to achieve them or we don't have what it takes. It's just that we run out of time. The actions aren't urgent, so we just keep putting them off until we're less busy, which never ends up happening. By weekly planning, we look at the next 168 hours instead of only 24 hours. We get the chance to schedule our Q2 tasks in advance, so we can go into each week knowing that we are getting 1% closer to our goals, and being able to have an outlook on our entire week to see if how we're spending our time aligns with our values and the life that we want to be living. So here is my suggestion. First, decide on a day to do your weekly planning. For me, this is on a Sunday as part of my Sunday reset. Friday afternoon can also be a really good time if you like to do it before the weekend and just take the weekend off. Second, add any unmovable tasks into your calendar. These are things like work hours, appointments, meetings or calls, or social events. Third, add your Q2 tasks into your calendar. At the moment, my Q2 tasks look like at least 1 social activity a week, a weekly review, writing or building for 60 to 90 minutes a day, and at least 2 periods of intentional rest per week. Now, if you have a look at this list, you can see they're all extremely important, but nothing will fall apart if you don't do them. This is what makes scheduling them in so important. If they're in the calendar, then you know that they'll get done, but if they're not, then your busy work will just consume all of your time. This gives you a framework to start with. You can go into each week knowing that you are moving closer to your vision, and then you can spend the 10 minutes each day doing your daily planning and adjusting from this starting point. If you've gotten to this point and you're like, I don't really get what these Q1, Q2 tasks are, then the sponsor of today's video might come in handy. If you're short on time or have a 10-page to-be-read list, then Shortform is a great way to get the key ideas series of books like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and decide whether you want to invest the time in reading the entire book. I have read a lot of books on productivity and self-development the past couple of years, so as someone with a terrible memory, short form's incredible guides to non-fiction books have been game-changing. They've helped me to remember key points and even gain a deeper understanding using their smart insights and interactive exercises. By joining through my link in the description below, you can get a free trial of unlimited access and an additional 20% discounted annual subscription. This will give you access to thousands of book guides for the price of one book a month. You might even find more tools for our next tip. Tip number 2, and this is big coming from an ex-to-do list lover, but don't use a to-do list. Before I had any productivity knowledge, I would sit down each morning, grab my to-do list, look at yesterday's to-do list, and carry across anything that I didn't finish from yesterday and anything else that I thought of. Yes, I got things done, but I definitely was not productive. My days revolved around my to-do list, but my to-do list didn't revolve around my goals, so it left me feeling like I was spinning my wheels every day, getting nowhere. Since you're watching this, I'm going to assume that you, like me, have a busy life and lots to do. So not only using our time, but using it effectively really is essential. Here's my issues with to-do lists. First, they don't consider how much time, energy, or focus a task takes. They just chuck everything in the same place and expect us to randomly grab things from there. Second is that they have no time constraints. They assume we have unlimited time. There's always more to do, and our list just keeps growing with everything that we say yes to. This means that they're never truly finished, and so we're never good or productive enough. And the third issue is that they don't free up our mental space. Either you write everything down but never finish them in one day, or you make a realistic to-do list but then keep everything else in your head. Doing this really limits your mental clarity and your ability to focus. Don't get me wrong, I still make to-do lists. They can be really useful to get your head sorted, but I simply don't rely on to-do lists to organize my life and manage my time. Instead, what I do is combine my master task list with time blocking. My master task list houses every single one of my tasks. It means I don't have to rewrite them each day. It gives me one place that I can store everything that I have to do. It lets me categorize my tasks so I can actually make the most of my time, and it makes it really easy to see if there's any tasks that are urgent or overdue. Now, isn't this a bit hypocritical if I just told you not to use to-do lists? Not quite, because I don't just sit down each day and try and get through as much of this list as possible. Every night I take 10 minutes to plan my next day. So I take my weekly plan that we created in step 1, I make any adjustments, and then I make my time blocks that I set more specific. So instead of saying work from 9 to 5, I will grab my master to-do list, look at what the work tasks are, and then I'll start slotting them into different time blocks within that 9 to 5 period. My calendar guides how I allocate my time, and my to-do list guides what I do in that time. And this leads me to my next tip. Tip 3 is to find your structure sweet spot. Many productivity gurus will preach time blocking, and I mean complete time blocking. No blank space, planning out every minute of every day, and getting the most return out of every moment. After all, failing to plan is planning to fail, right? So I tried this for a while, but it left me so stressed and anxious. It felt like I had this subconscious clock always ticking in the back of my head. My whole day would fall apart if one thing went wrong or ran late, and I missed out on living life because I was so scared to go outside of what my calendar told me to do. The only constant in life is change, and strict time blocking made me hate change and unpredictability. This really was not a good mix. Now, every one of us needs structure, especially if you struggle with decision making like I do. Structure creates freedom. It's why we come back from holidays saying, I can't wait to get back into routine. But you really have to find the right level of structure for you, a level that helps you reduce decision fatigue and use your time more productively without creating more stress and making you feel trapped. I will likely do a whole video on finding your structure sweet spot in future, so let me know if that's something that you want to see. But for now, here are some questions that you can ask yourself to help find your structure sweet spot. First, how much structure do you want in your work? How much control do you have over your workday? How much does it change? Are you most productive working to a specific schedule or with flexibility? What level of structure will minimize your stress and procrastination? And what has and hasn't worked for you in the past. The second thing to work out is how much structure do you want in your personal life? How much control do you have over your life outside of work? Are you a parent, or do you have caring obligations, or do you genuinely have most of your time available to choose what you do? Ask yourself if scheduling your spare time makes you more intentional or makes you feel trapped. Do you actually follow through and do what you'll say you'll do if something's not in your calendar? Or do work, lack of discipline, and others' priorities get in the way? And something else to consider is, are you in a busy period of life where you need to make the most of every minute, or can you be more laid back? If you hate planning or you feel like it doesn't even work, chances are you haven't found your structure sweet spot. If you feel like you're a slave to your calendar, then you might be over planning. If you feel like your days are getting away from you and you're not using your time with intention, then maybe you're under planning. Your sweet spot will depend on your personality, your work life, your home life, and your preferences. There genuinely is no right answer, so just experiment, see what works for you, and start to eliminate methods that are too structured or too unstructured. Tip 4 is to plan your day the night before. So a couple of weeks ago, I was struggling with my sleep really badly. I woke up morning after morning feeling like I'd barely slept the night before because my mind had been racing all night. And I was doing everything that I knew was good for my sleep. I was getting morning and evening sunlight. I was reducing screens and artificial light at night. I was going to bed and waking up at consistent times, so I didn't really understand. It took me a few days to realize what it was. I had stopped planning. My life got less busy for a period, so I just let the habit slip. This is what caused the mind racing. Our brain hates open projects and unfinished tasks, but our life is an open project. There is always something that we're in the middle of, something that we have to get done, a conversation that we hadn't finished. Going to bed with all of these open loops is what was creating the mind racing. Because although planning doesn't get rid of the task, it temporarily closes the open loops. Imagine yourself for a minute back at school sitting in class. Having no plan is like sitting there stressing the entire class because the teacher could call on you at any moment. Planning is like knowing when you'll be called and what the question will be. You still have to answer the question, but you can actually be present in the moment because you're not stressing about this unfinished thing. Planning the night before is also a really easy way to boost your chances of having a good day. Those mornings that you stay in bed snoozing and scrolling your phone and not getting out of bed until midday, why do you do that? My guess is that because it's a Saturday morning and you have no plan or obligation to do anything else, so you just do what's easiest. The first hour of your day sets the tone for the rest of the day, so if you can plan to make that first hour positive and productive, then you will be setting yourself up for an incredible day. Try and plan some small wins, like doing your hardest task, getting up and getting your body moving, just swapping the snooze button for doing a morning routine that energizes you. You will create so much positive energy that you'll be able to carry through your day, and you'll actually be able to start doing your tasks with energy and focus because you already know what you have to get done. Since going back to my nightly planning, my sleep has honestly gotten so much better and I feel so much more intentional as I go through each day. Tip 5 is to avoid the planning fallacy. Humans are so weird. We question our abilities, our self-worth, and the impact that we can have. We massively underestimate how much we can do in 6 months or a year, but at the same time, we massively overestimate how much we can do in an hour. Studies have shown that we predict tasks will take us as much as several weeks less to complete than they actually do. This is because of the planning fallacy. Our tendency to underestimate the amount of time, money, and effort it will take to complete a task, even if it contradicts our past experiences. Let's say you need to complete a report. You've done this many times and it normally takes you around 3 hours. But despite knowing this, today you think to yourself, I can get this done in 90 minutes. So you put aside a 90-minute block in your calendar and plan the rest of your day assuming that it will only take 90 minutes. Well, those 90 minutes pass by and to your shock, you've only completed half the task. You end up with two choices: either complete the task sacrificing a bunch of other things that you had planned and taking time and energy from your personal life, or you leave it and you don't get it done. Either way, you're left stressed, overwhelmed, and feeling like you've let yourself down, and this happens with so many things. I think that driving to the gym will take 5 minutes because it took me 5 minutes that one time, despite almost always taking 10 minutes. Even the Sydney Opera House took 10 years and $100 million more to build. Even the Sydney Opera House took 10 years and $100 million more to build than initially planned. We do this to reduce the sense of pressure that we feel in the moment. It's a lot easier to find 90 minutes for a task than it is to find an entire 3 hours. But it becomes a massive issue with time management because we end up constantly chasing our tail. We always feel like we're behind and unproductive, even if we genuinely have been productive. Unfortunately, wanting something to take an hour does not mean that it will, so be realistic with your time blocking. Yes, we can boost our energy and focus. We can work during our peak performance times, and we can be 100% intentional about what we're going to do with our time. But we're still only human, so give your task the amount of time that they need, not the time that you wish they needed. Add 5 minutes to your meetings for when they run over. Include your travel time in your calendar, and allow time for your dips in focus and your procrastination. Remember, empty space in your calendar is not the enemy. It's how you deal with the unpredictability of life without feeling overstressed. And if you end up with 10 extra minutes that you want to do something productive with, then you can always pick a task from your master to-do list. Planning sounds simple, but I know how overwhelming it can feel, especially when you're just getting started or when you have so much to do. So here are some action steps that I hope will make it a little bit less stressful for you. First, choose your planning time. Decide on one day each week to do your weekly plan and a time each day to do your daily planning. Put these times into your calendar now. Second, make a list of all your Q2 tasks. Take your goals, break them down into daily and weekly action steps that will allow you to achieve those goals. Add other important tasks from the list that we went through earlier and anything else that is important for your long-term goals and happiness. You might end up with a fairly big list, so make sure that you know which of these are the most important so that when you do have a busy week, you can prioritize those ones. Use this Q2 task list in your weekly planning. Third, find your structure sweet spot. Set aside some time to think through or journal on the questions that we went through in tip 3. Planning your week according to your structure sweet spot will make it so much easier and so much more enjoyable. And fourth, start planning this week. Do one weekly planning session following the steps from tip 1 and do at least 3 daily planning sessions. Use your structure sweet spot and remember to be realistic. Don't forget, starting something new is always the hardest part, so just take this first step. You'll go such a long way to making your life more organized, more productive, and more intentional. Let me know what tip you found the most interesting in the comments below. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week.